Well, welcome everybody to another episode of Forever Bristol City podcast. It's the morning after the night before. The score at Pride Park, it finished Derby County 1, Bristol City 1. Big improvement on last season's result up there. But really, it was 2 points lost. And whilst we were top of the table, it was only for an hour because, I say, 2 points lost, surrendered to a late equaliser. What we'd have done to have somebody like Carlton Morris as a big man up front. I'm delighted to be joined by regulars Dave Tubby and Neil Sutton, and a first appearance. We're really doing a squad expansion this season of Ant Banks. Welcome, Ant. And I know you post on OTIB as Silvio Dante, so that's your moniker on there, just like mine is Headhunter on there as well. As we always do, Dave Tubby, you can lead off. You watch the game from, you're somewhere in France at the moment, en route to Dusseldorf, aren't you? Is that right?
Yeah, I'm in the south of France in a B&B right now, and as soon as we finish this, I'm off to the north of France and then to Germany. So it's been an eventful 3 days with a bit of football in the middle, supposed to relax me, but did the opposite.
So what were your thoughts having watched the game, not live, because you told me you watched it this morning and had a chance to reflect, but 2 points lost, am I fair making that assessment?
The work was done. Derby were there, it was fresh meat on the table, pick your win, just kill the game. And we started to believe the hype, sloppiness crept in, and football does what football does. You think you have control, and then you don't anymore. And it takes just one moment. But it's not about the goal, it's about the failure to get the second and just kill it. And that's what happens in football. And for me, Saturday felt like a point gained. Yesterday was definitely 2 points dropped.
Okay. And your thoughts on the final whistle?
I think we'd be having a very different conversation had the final whistle blown 5 minutes earlier, obviously. Up to that point, it was kind of like the archetypal away performance. You soak up the early pressure, you take control of the game, and we had control of the game. I totally agree with Dave. We didn't get that second. We needed to get that second goal. And I think Struber said at the final whistle, he feels there's a switch off for one moment. There are things which lead up to that one moment, which we could talk about, but it's a preventable goal in a couple of occurrences. And it's a very big feeling of 2 points dropped there. It may come back to bite us. There is a little bit of compare and contrast with Derby game from the same time last season, where there is an improvement. We did look better than then, but ultimately it wasn't a great feeling at the final whistle because we should have got more out of that game.
Neil, your thoughts?
Before the pre-season, we obviously had a number of podcasts and we spoke about whether or not we've got the players to play this Struber ball, this all-out attack, this front foot, blah, 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 the horizontal pass and all the rest of it. We had feelings that we weren't sure whether or not we could do it. I think what yesterday and Charlton sort of demonstrated a little bit is we may have certain players that do it, but a lot that can't. And we haven't got the players at the moment, certainly, to play that 90 minutes and 85 minutes gone. We just switched off. We just switched off a number of players. If they go back and they review that goal, McCrory, and we'll talk about him at left wing back, for instance. But for me, the drop down when Reece went off injured, took a kick on his Achilles by all accounts. Obviously, he's not going to play at Fulham, but the drop down then with it. Sinks didn't have a bad game for Sinks, actually.
Pretty low bar, though.
Well, he does sings, and you know what you're going to get with him. You're not going to score, but you're gonna do certain things with Sinclair Armstrong. But I just think the drop off and taking off Randall as well. Again,
wrong.
I just think we lose a little bit of control in the centre when we take Randall off. But anyway, yep. For me, 2 points lost, but that was the story of last season.
Yeah.
How many late goals cost us away from home last season? And that's why we're probably playing like a mid-table side at the moment.
I mean, Tom of Robin's Nest has made a point there. It almost seems to be in the DNA of the club, because I can remember the season after we got to the playoffs in 2008 when Gary Johnson was in charge. 2008-9 season wasn't bad, but we were always conceding late goals. And it's that soft underbelly that is, Bristol's a nice place to live and it's all easy going and there's not that killer instinct. I mean, you look at that documentary, and I can't stand the people on it, but the Birmingham City documentary, right? their owner, right, and Tom Brady in the background, right, they're winners and they're taking nothing less than 100%. And a lot of people were saying on a forum after the game, and Sky said it, I've said it in the headline on OTIB, we were passive and sleepwalking, thinking we could just run the game down. And you texted me and said when Randall went off, when he went off, that was it, game over.
Well, I just thought City, the last, how many years now? How many games do we actually finish pushing for that win? How many games do we actually finish on a crescendo? It's not many. We generally finish on a holding out, whether it be 2-1s or 1-0s last year or whatever, or holding out or late goals. When you look at the teams, you just bought Birmingham there. They went to Blackburn, 90th minute, 98th minute, 90th minute, and then they still kept pushing for that 2-1. They didn't settle for the 1-1, and they kept pushing. And you're right, it's not in our DNA to finish a game pushing for a result.
But when you say the players haven't got the running ability, one player that didn't look tired was a player that they took off, which was Randall.
Yeah,
because I said the other day, Randall was more night than night. Dave, the starting lineup, we thought we might get changes, and we did, but not quite in the format that we thought, because it was you and Tanner being left out. Did that surprise you, the lineup, and was it a bit harsh on George Tanner?
No, I don't think it was harsh. I think there's no room for sentiment. He's played well to start the season, but the three that started yesterday are the best back three as it stands.
Yeah.
In terms of Sykes coming on for you, it was going to be a physical game. On that left-hand side, he's not the guy. But what it does do is it exposes the fact that we don't have a naturally left-sided player. And McCrory can do a job there. And if you're looking for physicality, he can fit in. But he's not necessarily going to give you that bursting runs, getting crosses in, imposing a threat. He might pop up with a goal, and he often does. But he's not going to give you an extra there. Sykes is the man of moment. He kind of showed that yesterday. But with the options available, for me, what was interesting again was the bench. There's no Stokes again. And if you look at the bench, I saw on OTB yesterday, somebody quoted, half of the bench is essentially sellable right now. If the right offer came in, they take it straight away. Almost any offer. It's like, take your pick of the forward options. And a lot of our prospects this season rest on Stokes, first of all, getting fit, and then putting himself in a position where he's challenging those two, because our attacking options are just so limited at the moment.
Okay. Ant, what did you think of the lineup? Somebody's put on the text feed here, might we be regretting losing McGuane, because McGuane's availability, he didn't play that much, but McGuane's fit, and Joe Williams, we've had a couple of good seasons out of the 4 now that he's been here, but we missed. And as Dave Tubby's just said, on the bench you've got Armstrong, Bell, Cornick, and Mayulu. You don't need all 4 of those, and you could have brought in their place 2 from. If you had 2 of them, Stokes, Murphy, Morrison, Knight, LaBelle. 2 of those to replace 2 of those misfits that don't look like they'll ever wear a shirt for Bristol City again. Harry Cornick being the most obvious one of that quartet. But your thoughts on the team?
Well, taking it bit by bit, I wasn't surprised by the team selection, and it was probably the team that I would have picked as well. I mean, agree again, Dickey is better than Tanner, and that was our best back three, particularly with physicality of Morris that we had there. And early on, Morris was actually winning a few of the duels, but we did gradually start to get on top of that rather than anything else. Sykes coming in, I'm a big fan of Sykes. I see him potentially departing because obviously he is a saleable asset with less than a year to run on his contract. But I think the value of Sykes was proven during the first half of the game, where he gradually got more and more of a foothold, and will come to the assist, which he made, and also was working back and forth exceptionally well. We talk about the goal that Derby scored later on, obviously, in Sykes' part in that. The other side, it does leave you weak, because if you look in the current system we're playing, Mehmeti is probably playing further forward than Twine. Twine's playing probably about 5 yards deeper than Mehmeti. And if you've got McCrory on the left-hand side and your left-hand side more forward player is that bit further advanced, it does make that side slightly imbalanced rather than anything else. And it does suggest you're crying out for Campering to become fit again. In respect of McGuane, for me, McGuane was a lot of the times just there rather than anything else last season. You couldn't point to anything that he did particularly well, couldn't point did particularly badly. I saw a stat which said that we gained the least points per player when McGuane was on the pitch. I look at Randall as an upgrade to McGuane. And I think what we have to look at is we can't just keep stockpiling players. That's why we're in the position we are, where we've got 4 strikers on the bench, none of whom are likely to kick a ball for us. If in an ideal world, we can't keep stockpiling players on a just-in-case basis. And Joe Williams, when fit, is a better player. Discuss whether he's been run into the ground at the back end of last season. Discuss whether the same thing has happened with Cam Pring. I certainly don't have any regrets in selling McGuane. I do think that we could have changed the balance of that bench by putting a Stokes in there. Now, clearly he's in Struber's plans because he's been very, very positive about him. So we wait and see if that actually transpires and he does get the minutes. I'd like to see him get some minutes at the Fulham game on Wednesday. I like his attitude. I like his intensity. And actually, I think if you are going to take off one of the 2 10s, for want of a better term, he's the absolute ideal candidate there. But it's the side I would have picked, and it's the side that was actually doing a very, very good job, probably up until around the 70th minute, and certainly up until the 85th generally.
Yeah. Neil, your thoughts on this bench overloaded with strikers when there are young players? I mean, Struber's talked in the media, and he talked very loosely at the Senior Reds lunch, which I had the pleasure of interviewing him for 20 minutes. You know, okay, if Stokes is not quite ready yet, you know, you could still put him on because you could probably do 20 minutes, couldn't he? Yeah. But there's other options on the bench as well. You know, the Morrison and Knight LaBelle, extra defenders maybe, because, you know, on the bench, I suppose you've got Roberts and Tanner. Both of those you'd have ahead of Morrison and Knight LaBelle, wouldn't you?
I think if we deal with the bench, first of all, we found ourselves in a situation where we are, where is it today? 22nd, 10 days left in the window. I think in an ideal world, we'd love to shift about 4 or 5 players out and bring 2 or 3 in and just freshen it up, because you look at the bench and you just know certain players aren't going to get on. You know, Roberts isn't going to get on. You know, Cornick's not going to get on. You know, Bell's not going to go on. They're all out of contract at the end of the season. They're all just.
But why even put Cornick on the bench? You know, if you've because he seems to be the one that we're deliberately seem to be trying to force him out.
But I think it's like 3 league games into the season, so it's really, really early on in the season to make for me to make sort of necessarily why Struber is doing anything. We've appointed a new guy in the academy now. So there's a recognition, I think, that we haven't brought the under-21s through. We haven't brought the young players through. I think that'll happen over the course of the season because we will have injuries. So I think, you know, you've got these players that are hanging around at the moment that we need to move on. We need to move a lot of players on. That's a given. But last night for me, I don't get the Randall substitutions. For me, last night, he's done it 2 games now. And if you're going to bring Max Bird on, he can play in a 10. So you would take off, say, the Charlton game, where he kept Mehmeti and Twine on until the 83rd minute, and then Reece had run himself into the ground, and then he had to do a double substitution up top because of it. And you just think, bring Bird on for either Twine or Mehmeti.
Yeah.
And then keep Randall there, and then you just
he's got the energy.
But when but David, you're talking about energy, and I appreciate the fact that Knight and Randall looked good yesterday. But when I was watching the first half, I didn't actually see much creativity. So, like, we're getting a lot of the ball. Knight's trying to dictate play. But what did he actually create? How many balls through? What service did we have to the striker? And it comes from those two. And, you know, when Randall made that, real tough challenge and was subbed straight away, it was a feeling of, is this the moment? But on one hand, we're saying the strikers aren't getting service. We're not getting the ball up the pitch. And on the other hand, we're saying, but we need to have energy. Yeah, I personally think he needs to find a way to play the 3 together in the midfield.
No, and that's what you do. Squad. But you can play the 3, but you have to drop Twine or Mehmeti. And it's obvious that Mehmeti is the one that you leave out. And what you
yeah, and I was going to say on current form, and people who know me from the forum will know that I'm been critical of Twine in the past, and I think you absolutely can't drop Twine at the moment, because not just because of the goals and the creativity. I mean, if I look at last night, you have the goal, yes, but the absolute work rate that he was putting in last night was top notch. And if he'd have done that from the get-go, then there'd be no question marks over him. A lot of people are saying he was injured last season. We shouldn't be playing injured players. No. We're paying the price of that at the moment. And then there was one ball through to Sinclair Armstrong in the second half from Twine, which was fantastic. The disguise on it was superb. Now, to Dave's point, in the context of did we really create a lot? I thought we were patient enough in our creativity in the first half without going into the age-old problems of horseshoes. There were more balls which were going more central. Yes, Reece didn't touch the ball a lot first half, but Reece is there as a disruptor. He was disrupting, creating space for other people, because if he flicks it on, there's nobody there rather than anything else. And if you look at what we were creating when Knight and Rand were on the pitch, straight after the goal, you have Mehmeti's chance. You then have 3 or 4 chances in the second half, even when Reece is off and Sinclair Armstrong's on. And I agree with Neil, I think that Sinclair Armstrong actually played well for Sinclair Armstrong without ever looking like he was going to score a goal. He did a lot of things well. Did a couple of things very Sinclair Armstrong-ish, like the ball back to McCrory. But I thought we had some real control of the game. And for me, the thing that worried me about the Randall sub was that it seemed pre-planned and preordained. And I don't really want him to go back there. He's come off on 70 minutes, 2 games in a row. I'm absolutely about the fact that Max Bird needs minutes because he's coming back. You've got to give Bird 20 minutes. You've got to try and get him in, because there's no point in him coming in cold. But to me, the move there would have been either Twine, who had run himself into the ground, typically over the game, and I very rarely said that, or it was Mehmeti, because again, we just pushed too far forward effectively. And that's almost contrary to what we were saying about happy to sit back and be passive. It was actually an attacking substitution, bringing Bird on for Randall.
Yeah.
But made us worse. It wasn't a case of we looked like we were going to really win the game and kick on.
No.
It was
like against Charlton. Like against Charlton. You know, he's a rangy player. He's not the busy bee. But I agree with what you say, Dave, to some extent. That you look at Randall and Knight, and both of them are busy bees, and they're not the most creative. You know, they're not the player that's going to put the raking crossfield ball like Bird is capable of doing. Let's get into the action, Dave. I'll start with you.
Can I just make one point with it? For me, last week, the Charlton game, I was sitting there in E32 watching it with all of us, and we were like, is he going to be brave to make a change to bring Bird on? And I thought he's going to bring Bird on for Randall, and he did it 57 minutes. I just had a check, because I thought it was a bit earlier the Charlton game. No, completely right. And I thought, God, that's brave. Let's see. And it didn't work. And we lost control. And then after that, I just thought with Randall, the things that Randall doesn't stand out on the football field. That's the annoying thing. He's one of these players that you don't notice his influence until he's not there. And when we saw him in the Real Valladolid and the MK Dons games, close up from W13 when I sat in the posh seats with you, and he reads the game so well. You know, when there's a break in play, when there's a this and that, or a tackle or a 50-50 ball, he's already ahead of it and he's reading it and doing that. Take, for instance, last night, the goal that we'll come to, their equaliser. You just get the feeling that if he was on the pitch, he'd be reading what's happening and he'd be sprinting and covering and all the rest of it.
Like Knight.
I don't think Knight started the season particularly well.
No.
But the actual sort of the reading of the game and the mopping up and the dirty stuff, Randall does it so well on it. And he noticed when he's not there. But I get the Bird substitution, like Dave and you have said, about the creativity. But that's more a reflection of your offensive players not doing it, that you're having to bring Bird on and compromise yourself, compromise the team by taking Randall off to bring Bird on, because the front lot aren't doing it. He's not changing.
You say something interesting about Knight. Like, I thought Randall was playing really well yesterday. Could there have been an option maybe that Bird comes on for Knight and looking that way?
Well,
Is Knight really
I was just going
unstoppable?
to say that because Neil, well, I'll ask Neil because you're sat right here.
Yeah.
Did Knight play against MK Dons?
Yes.
He started.
Yes.
He did the full 90 minutes.
Yes.
Well, for goodness sake, why are we flogging him
Because
to death?
Because he's the captain. I think. And he's a pivotal player for us. And he's a really important player.
And Struber likes Knight. You know, he was singing his praises at the senior Reds lunch. He's saying, "I've got somebody who's not only a captain."
Before we move on, what I think for sure is that Bird is a problem they've got to try and solve, because a lot of our creativity last season came through him and starting attacks. Finding a way for him, Knight, and Randall ultimately is the final question. I understand the fact that Pring's injured and him being left back will open up a whole load of formations. But right now it's about how to make it work, because it's undeniable. As soon as Randall was going off, we lose the sense of control we have. But what I'm watching, I'm sensing a lack of creativity, shall we say.
And maybe we keep playing Mehmeti because he did the full 90 minutes again. He did the full 90 minutes. Maybe we're playing him to assuage his desire to want away from us by signing a new contract. And once he get his ink on the contract, we will put him on the bench and bring him on as an impact. So let's get into the action. Early doors, it was pretty much all Derby. It really was Derby. And early doors, Carlton Morris used his body, as Sky said, on at least 2 occasions, if I recall, to get his way past Rob Dickey. I don't know how much Carlton Morris cost them, but, you know, it's good acquisition. I think he scored in every game. Vyman had a shot blocked. Dickey had one. I think it was that shot that hit him on the arm. Nothing given, but it was all Derby in the early stages. And then we got back into the game. And as you said before we went live, and it was that tackle by Randall on one of their blokes. It was a real...
It was superb.
A real block tackle. And that seemed to alter the momentum, didn't it? And we were in the game getting better and better from that point, Anne, weren't we?
Yeah, I mean, it was 2 things did that. I mean, moments in games, and it doesn't have to be shot saves, it can be a tackle, can really impact things. Adams, he's playing further forward than he used to for Derby, because he is generally an enforcer, a tackler, but he's their hard man, for want of a better term, in the middle of the pitch. A 50-50 ball, Randall comes in, absolutely fair, cleans him out, leaves him on a heap. And that speaks to the point of Randall being in the right place at the right time frequently to make that tackle clean as a whistle. It was superb. And you could almost sense from the television when the picture was good that actually it changed the atmosphere slightly in the stadium. But also Struber was able to talk to the players, and it was noticeable we started prompting and moving forward a bit more. Adams wasn't the same player for at least 10, 15 minutes after that point. You know, he was hobbling around trying to stay on the pitch, basically, because Randall had done him, which was fantastic. And we built and built and built and built. And that goal was coming. Yeah. That goal was coming. Just from pure momentum. Yeah. I think a couple of minutes before, Sykes did an exceptionally good bit of skill on the right-hand side, which earned us a corner. And then the goal did come shortly afterwards, but it was because we rattled Derby. In more than ways, we rattled them because we'd taken out their main man, and we started pushing more and more and more. So to me, it's another huge tick in the box from Adam Randall yesterday, because actually, in the job he does, it's very difficult to say you changed the game. I thought he changed the game yesterday in that actual moment.
Yeah. I agree. Dave, do you agree with that as well? And let's talk about the goal as well. It was coming.
The introduction, the start of the game itself, they started as, you would expect a side that had been struggling to start at home. They came out of the blocks, they got the crowd behind them. We weren't on it to begin with. I think they had a corner at the beginning and they had a free man, essentially, with no one near him, and it's that kind of stuff. It's long throws into the box. We weren't winning the challenges. And part of it was winning the aerial battle. All of a sudden, we're winning the knockdowns. We're not just competing. Like Morrison doesn't even compete for the ball half the time. His goal is to make sure that you don't win it. And that door was shut. And then it became the Knight game of Knight getting on the ball, looking to build. And essentially from that moment, we were winning the energy game. Yeah. And in terms of the goal itself, it comes from a fact that there's a quick switch. You get the ball to Sykes free. and you want your best players in attacking positions. He's got space. And I know we like to, it's easy to criticize Anis sometimes because he's so frustrating. But you cannot underestimate his run in creating that goal. Because if he doesn't move, the space isn't there. And it's his run that creates the space for Twine. And Twine kind of does one of those FIFA type goals where, you culturally curl it into the goal. It was an excellent finish. And I would say it was a deserved lead simply for the fact that we took what Derby had to offer and then shut the door.
Yeah, totally agree. Neil, would you agree with that as well? Because it was all Derby, and I was thinking, oh my God. But then we were in the ascendancy, and then, oh my God, we've actually gone in front. We've had a bit of pressure, and it was a good goal as well.
I went up to Derby last year. First 20 minutes, we were, we missed 3 1-on-1s. There were cutbacks. They were throwing themselves in front there. We could have been 2 or 3-0 up. Thereafter, Ozo, who then got injured for him, the low knee from Crystal Palace, who's a very good player, and Adams absolutely dominated Knight and Bird. Absolutely dominated the centre physically and all the rest of it. Last night, I thought the ref was poor. First half, I counted 3 bookable offences by Ozo. He was taking players out all over the place, and the ref didn't get on it. Adams, exactly the same. He knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah, they came in late, didn't they?
He was coming in late, and he was doing it. Marsh, who have we just been talking about? Sorry.
Morris.
Randall. Thank you. When Randall got Adams, he stood over the ball, proper Jerry Gow moment, and went and spoke to him when he was on the floor. And it was like, if the ref's not going to take anything on it, I'm going to say to you enough now and draw a line. And that goes to Adam's thing as well. It was proper like Williams, because I thought when I saw Ozo and Adams there, and I thought, oh God, are we going to be a little bit passive in the middle? Are we going to allow sort of things? Because, Mehmeti's going to get kicked, Twine's going to get kicked. They kicked Twine out of the game last year. And I just thought the ref was weak first half. He really he let a lot of things go, didn't book anybody.
Well, and I've seen that tackle by Adam, by Randall, that we all said was a bit of a turning point. You see, some referees might give a foul there because it was just so hard. But as you say, he did a Jerry Gow and stood over him. And that battling spirit. That is that battling spirit that we want to see, because City fans, they love somebody who gets stuck in. Glenn Humphreys.
But David, I think it was across the side, because ultimately it got to a point where Derby really had no idea what to do. You can see them watching tape of us previously, like, look, they're weak in the air. If you win the aerial battle, you'll beat them. They had no number 10 option. They had no one sitting in pockets. And it got to the point they were like, well, what do we do now? Because when we hit it forward, we're losing the ball. So we've got to play around, and their football essentially became aimless, and that's when we grew confident.
I agree. They were poor. Let's get into 2 more incidents before half time. Dickey was wrestled to the ground by Adams, or pushed. No penalty, and we were told that referees were going to stop this all-in wrestling in the box in situations like that. I saw the replay. I thought, I've seen those given as a penalty. Do you think it should have been?
I've seen those given, but also by the same token, if you looked at any Derby corners, it was a full-on wrestling match between Morris and Reese on a regular occasion. So I'm kind of of the mind that 2 things went with that Dickey incident. One, it was far enough away from the ball that actually it didn't become an obvious goal-scoring opportunity or something like that, and that will always play into a referee's thinking. The other thing is, for all we say about he was poor and he wasn't great, he became consistently poor for both sides in certain areas. I mean, there were wrestling matches all over penalty areas.
He wasn't a homer.
No, and so for me, as long as you're going to do things consistently, then probably you don't have massive complaints. If he'd have turned around and given a penalty because for the Reese and Morris incidents, where literally it's just they're all over each other. And not giving them one on Dickey, I'd probably be sat and saying we're hard done by that. I don't think we necessarily were. I do agree that there was a lot of trying to kick people out. I mean, one incident in the second half, 6 in mine, where Sinclair Armstrong ran down the line, and I think Adams shirt continually on Armstrong, and it could have been multiple free kicks. Could it have been a pen? Have I seen them given? Yes, absolutely. Do I see why it wasn't? Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Dave?
I thought it was as clear as a penalty as they come. And normally I have a high bar, and often I'm always the one like, no, it's not. No, it's not a penalty. No, it's not. But it's two hands on his back. It literally pushes him over, and it's like, if that's not a penalty, what is? It's for me. It's not wrestling. You know, it's not like two players going for the ball. It's literally a push. And for me, it's a really clear penalty. And I understand what Ant is saying about how, the ball's not around. But if you're a referee looking at that, for me, it's as obvious as they come.
Okay. Neil, in agreement?
I think VAR would have given it.
Yeah.
I think VAR would have said
they'd have alerted the referee.
They've alerted to the ref because it's two hands in his back, pushed him over.
Yeah.
When it's back, I get the adversarial thing that Ant's on about. Absolutely, the wrestling. Right, cut it out. God, ref, get it in the middle. All the rest of it. When it's when they're facing each other, and when there's that, I get that. If you got rid of that and you called that, it would just become a very passive corner kick. So you have to allow a certain amount of that. But Dickie is running away from him on the near post, and he puts two hands on his back and pushes him. And it's the type of thing that I think VAR would have gone to the ref. You need to go and have a look at this on a monitor and then make a decision. And I think when he looked at that, he'd be like, he makes absolutely no effort
to get
to get the ball at him.
I think Sky did say at halftime, didn't they? They thought that Dickie had gone down too easily. I thought was what they said. He made too much of it. Now,
you mean a bit like when Kiefer Moore went down under the challenge from Dickie in the playoff final first leg, for goodness sake.
Completely.
Like Ronnie Edwards, the Southampton against Wrexham, when he's in the back there and he pushes him. Sort of thing, but it's happened at a set piece. I agree that Dickie went down like he'd been shot, didn't he? Which didn't probably help the situation. I think he's been taking lessons from Twine or something like that in relation to the way he throws himself up in the air, history on it. But
I got to pick up what Ian Gilmore said on here, and we alluded to it earlier. Can't you imagine? Again, Dave, you said about changing formations, but you imagine a front two of Carlton Morris and Reece up front for us. You'd have the guile of Reece and the physicality of Carlton Morris. You'd probably have to play with a 4, though. Yeah, you'd probably have to play with a 4 rather than what we're doing.
David, Mr. P, you could play a 4-3-1-2, and if you can just fill out that left back problem, in essence, there's room to do so many things. And imagine a midfield of Bird in the middle and Randall and Knight the other side. You could have Twine in the middle and a front two. It's the fact that we are so weak on the left-hand side and we have so few options, it limits what can be done.
Yeah. No, you're right. And then just the last incident, the first half, again, good play by Twine. As I say, I wasn't his greatest fan last season, but he's come back this campaign looking somewhat, 3 goals in the 4 competitive games we've had.
And 3 assists.
And he's come back starting to look like the player that we thought we bought, well, relative to the money. And he set up on 37 minutes. He set up Mehmeti, who did his usual over-elaboration, trying to get his shot away before it was blocked. Anyway, we went in at half-time, 1-0 up, which was great. Good travelling support from our lot, considering it was a Friday night and live on Sky. While we're talking about Sky, who else noticed their colour was all over the place? I thought my eyesight had gone and flicked across and saw the West Ham-Chelsea game and knew it was their cameras there because they all looked like, well, I think Carlton Morris looked like he'd have one of those masks that people have on their face when they fractured their cheekbone, because his face was two-tone. But our players look like they've been on the pot for more days. And the other thing about Sky as well, Michael Bridges. What the hell? Okay, we've had some pundits on there that don't like us, right? But what is the point of Michael Bridges? 11 appearances, no goals, signed in the summer of 2005 by you-know-who, one of the 7 signings that he made that were all crap. Magnificent Seven. They were crap. But why Michael Bridges? He's got no connection. I'd sooner see Ian Holloway commentating. At least he's a bloody Bristolian. And he has got a sense of humour.
You're pushing boundaries.
Let's not go too far on this.
No, Sky. But good to see Michelle Owen back hosting as well, because she's been She was poorly last year, linked to her pregnancy, wasn't she?
Yeah, well, she's been on maternity leave.
Well, mat leave as well, but I think it's good to see her back.
Don Goodman, just going on back.
He doesn't
how much does he go on about Derby? Really good energy from Derby in a Derby.
Yeah.
He didn't even acknowledge anything we'd done well.
No, he
throughout
doesn't
the course
like
of the
us.
game. He was.
Keith Andrews was the same.
I don't know if Don Goodman doesn't like us. There's times when he actually does say that was a really good goal and does acknowledge the good things that we do. But just generally during the course of the game, he was like, I don't think Derby deserved a point last night. I'm just going to say, but if you listen to Don Goodman, they were unlucky. They were unlucky.
Well, they weren't.
And
they
was
weren't.
Just like, yeah.
Second half, they started strong. Again, as you'd expect, the home team coming out. Talking about referees and Weimann on Atkinson, that was I thought that deserved a yellow. What did you think of Andy Weimann's contribution? I mean, the Austrian connection, we talked about getting Carlton Morris. Could there have been a return for out of contract Andy Weimann in the summer?
I suggested him in the summer as someone I thought may fit what we understand Struble to be, with lots of transitions pressing, because Weimann's a very, very willing runner, on a very intense basis. The instant itself, it was a yellow. I don't really have any qualms about that. Atkinson's away from him and it's late. I don't see how that's not a yellow. I thought Andy was quiet last night. There was one where he was offside, I think, and he was offside for a good few seconds before it actually even got called. He got himself ahead of the game and didn't adjust himself to get back.
Yeah.
I don't think it helped the fact that we were controlling the game massively on there. If you were looking at that performance, you wouldn't sign him, and actually with the age he is now, you wouldn't sign him. It was noticeable at the end when they cut. Him and Struber were deep in conversation. Obviously, they would be aware they do know each other. But I would say Andy's ineffective last night. And should have seen a yellow card and was very lucky not to do so.
Yeah, okay, I'd agree with you, and I think you're absolutely right. It was too much of us going back to former players in whatever capacity and bring them back to the club because they're good eggs, etc.
I'll make a very quick point on fouls for me. I'm just looking at it. They made 15 fouls to our 5 last night, and yet the very first yellow card was their goalkeeper when he held on to the ball after that awful Rickover back pass by Adams.
But that 15 to 5 foul count, that 15 to 5 foul count to me shows that we weren't aggressive in the tackle, protecting our lead, mothering the ball.
What I wrote down 10 minutes into the second half, my only comment was, it's a battle. To me, at that point, that was the point where we were really winning the game, because Derby came out of another plan, right, we're going to go again. And the fact in that first 10 minutes that we held firm, at that point, Derby were done.
Yeah.
Derby had no answers left, and it was a case of, are we going to kill this game, or are we going to settle for control? And we'll come to the rest later, but at that point, the game was there to be taken. It was in our hands. It was up to us how we approached it.
Yeah. Well, Derby were rattled, as you say, because they made a triple substitution on the 60th minute and then another double substitution 8 minutes later. And between those two incidents, again, sums up Armstrong, who come on 55 for Reese, that Armstrong did a 1-2 with Twine, right? But it was a very weak shot that Zetterman had no trouble saving it at all, did he, Neil?
Well, he fumbled it.
Yeah.
He made up for it later on, but he did sort of pass. The thing about Sinks last night is Sinks is so one-footed in it that his body shape the whole time, he's having to change his body shape when he's running and when he's passing. Well, he's just trying to get on his right the whole time, even when he needs to be on his left.
He's known as a fridge, isn't it? And if you've tried manoeuvring a fridge,
that's my wife's.
Is it your Cordelia uses that? Manoeuvring a fridge through a door when you're moving out is a bit like watching Sinclair turn.
But I think with what strikes me is he runs, and he runs with his head down. He doesn't get his head up. He looks down and he runs. And there was that time when a couple of minutes after he came on, where it was a really good move, and he's running down the left-hand side. And all the spaces on the left, and because he's got his head down and it's on the right, he cuts in, and he cuts into 4 Derby players that are just standing there. And he had no idea that there were four Derby ones there, because he's just got his head down and he's just run cut back in on his right and run into
He's like my
players.
Labrador in pursuit of food, you know.
Situational awareness, he's just not going to have it. I mean, technically, he looks like, to me, he looks like a League Two conference player from a technical ability type of thing. But he has pace and power.
What frustrated me about his performance yesterday is I actually thought he was okay. He was holding the ball up. He was winning free kicks. He had one particular shot which it was actually on target, and it was like, okay, there is progress there. And I know I'm skipping the game a bit, but what he did when he cut back and passed it to McCrory is just beyond lazy. And I was desperately trying to watch football this morning and not wake my wife. And in that moment, I nearly lost my mind because it's just not an acceptable pass. When you're that far up the pitch, you're trying to kill a game, and you basically give a hospital pass and give the ball away. Yeah. You cannot do that as a top-level striker. You just cannot.
We're playing in the Championship. He is at best a League One striker at best.
I think he's League Two. I think he's League Two.
Well, there you go. He's being paid Championship wages, and that's why nobody lower down the leagues is going to take him. And you agree?
I don't think Armstrong again played badly for Armstrong last night. I thought he did a lot of good things in terms of he did run the channels, he did hold the ball up. Yeah, McCrory ball was just horrendous, and he never looks like he's going to score a goal at all. I think there is a wider piece here about when you've got Armstrong on the pitch, what it does to the rest of the team. So you can see, for example, if you've got Reece on the pitch, you can see that Twine knows what Reece is going to do. Already you can see the forming of that relationship. If you go back to the goal at Sheffield United, Mehmeti's made the run when Reece has pulled wide, and that results in the goal. So you can see the formations of relationships there. The problem is, due to a lack of any kind of awareness about what you're supposed to do when you're on a football pitch, Sinclair Armstrong, when he's on there, it means that the other players have no real clue what he's going to do. And that isn't to say he played badly in himself last night. He did hold the ball up well. The instant I said about Adams, he was getting pushed all the way down the line and ends up winning a free kick. The position he took up a
there was that run that he did do where he literally took the ball 60 yards down the pitch and took the pressure off. Yeah.
When he's not having to think, he can just be like, right, Sinks, run down that line and keep running. Right, okay, no problem. But when the ball breaks and it's like in a 50-50 sort of situation, he just gets in the way of other players.
Yeah.
He's like always.
Why do you think it is? Why do you think it is? Struber's looked at it essentially, and I understand that you'll have to lose a player elsewhere, and he's not yet gone for the Armstrong and Reece combination. Because if you're talking about Armstrong running channels, that takes a load off of Reece's, because Reece does a fantastic job of keeping centre backs busy. Yeah. But if he's got someone else doing that.
Yeah, but Dave, if you do that, who do you take off? Because we're arguing that we really need Bird in midfield, and therefore you have to take off Twine. It is a formation change. It is going to a flat back four to have anything like that combo.
You could go with a 3-4-1-2. It's all about essentially, would you go for Anis or Twine coming off? And there are certain moments that maybe you'd look at it. And I appreciate that, yes, it was because of an injury. But ultimately, Armstrong on his own up front, it just doesn't ever look like he's going to get into a goal-scoring situation.
MK Dons, I remember this now. MK Dons, he took Twine off, brought Armstrong on 62 minutes and played Reece and Armstrong up top together. And Armstrong, I think, looked a lot better for playing the two up top. Yeah. So Reece and Armstrong played from 60 minutes against MK Dons together up there.
Yeah,
I think Ant summed it up in a really good way, though, is that with Reece, there's like this connection. They know what they're going to do, but with Armstrong, they're never quite sure, so they don't know what the run to make, and that half a second is the difference sometimes.
Yeah. We had these chances to get the second goal because 77 minutes. Mehmeti dragged the ball wide. He did a cross shot. Now was it a shot or was it a cross? I mean, there were two players that didn't get on the end of it. I think Twine was the last man he couldn't stuck out a leg, but
that moment is everything about Anis that is good and frustrates you. He gets himself into position, shoot and get it on target and make the keeper make a save, or cross it. And in the end, he does neither. And it's always about his decision making. And I know it. I've heard it before. If he got those decisions right, he wouldn't be playing for us. And it's true. but please get some more of them right, because that's an example of not making the right decision.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the goal, because the goal that we conceded, 88 minutes. You couldn't say is it 85? Was it 85?
Was it 86?
85th minute. There we go. To say it was coming, I don't really agree with that. We were getting deeper and deeper. And how did you were talking before we went live about the build up to the goal? There was a lot wrong. It had a good save in there from Vitek. It was the only thing he had to do all night. But what were your thoughts leading up to it? Because we weren't on it in a way that we should have been.
Yeah, completely. I mean, obviously, at that point, we'd subbed off Randall, which had taken out a little bit of the cover, which potentially could have picked up the ball when it becomes loose. But to me, it actually starts from, and I think Sykes generally did well last night. But if you look at the build up for the throw-in, Sykes intercepts and puts it out for a throw to them. And it felt like a little bit of a lazy interception to me. It felt like he could have controlled that ball and it almost just bounced off him for the throw. They take a relatively quick throw-in. It goes into the corner to Carlton Morris, and you've got Sykes and Viner both running towards him. Then gets dropped back. Viner goes to the crosser, and as the cross is coming in, Morris starts making his way into the area. Sykes is he's at jogging pace at best behind him. So he's not getting ready for the second phase. The ball comes over to the back post, and I think McCrory should do better at that back post with a header. I think he should have put a more robust challenge in on that, and that's not something you often say about McCrory. Good save for me. I'm not sure he can do much more than that on there. But then you see Morris is on his way in, and while he's there, Sykes is 5 yards behind him, and they're from the same starting position. So for me, I think there's a little bit of laziness in the initial throwing. I think Sykes and Viner have to probably be a little bit better communication. Sykes should be the guy going for the crosser. Viner should be following Morris in, because, Morris is always going to out-muscle Sykes on that basis. McCrory needs to do better on the header. But ultimately, I think it's a bit of switching off for that particular moment. And if I was going to apportion blame, and I say this as a Mark Sykes fan, I think he has to do a lot better on the second phase after the crosses come in, because Morris is alive to coming in for the opportunity.
Yeah.
We weren't, and he was free, and that meant that when the ball rebounds, for all the people on the line, we can't keep it out.
I think that's a very thorough explanation of the goal. I'm going to look at it again, because as you say, it's not the final ball, it's what led up to everything, and that included the save from Vitek, which was another good instinctive save. Dave, the goal, as you saw it, well described by Anne, but players...
There's a few things. First of all, Sykes, this is wing-back position. This is the most demanding thing on the pitch, and it's all well and good putting McCrory on the left, but then you're not giving him a break. So if you do take off Sykes at any point, who are you going to put there? Tanner? Maybe, but you're basically ceding ground. The main issue for me, because Anne has already described it fantastically, is that we asked for trouble, and then we were surprised when trouble knocked on the door. Because it always happens, and some clubs are just not made to sit back. You think you're in control, we're in control. Oh, we're not in control anymore. We are now a club of chaos theory. And we've spoken about on previous podcasts, would you rather see the team sit back, or would you rather see them pushing for the second? What leaves me frustrated is that we were not pushing for the second enough, and we concede by trying to maintain control, which is the very thing that was frustrating us last season.
Yeah. And incidentally, when we were playing Sheffield United the previous week, we were 2-1 up at half-time. We went on to the second half, and we got 2 more goals because we kept going with that positive approach. Now, somebody said they might be proved right. See how the results go today. Was it that we were that good against Sheffield United, or they're crap because they've lost all 3 games? I think they're at home to Millwall today, so that'll be quite.
Wait, the Derby were not good yesterday.
No, they weren't.
We just did not kill them. That's it.
They were. You used the word earlier, Dave. You used the word aimless, and they just seemed to be all over the shop. Neil, your thoughts on the goal?
Stepped off on a passive to allow the cross. We didn't press the cross, so we got a free cross.
And sorry, Neil. Somebody said Sykes was appealing for offside, but it can't be offside from a bloody throw-in.
Well, when the ball comes back to the crosser, forgive me, I don't know the cross on it, but it's Hunt coming in. He got sent off playing for Peterborough. I always remember in Last Man, he took out Vyman all those years ago. Is it Joel Hunt or something?
Might be.
At the far post. The one thing I've noticed about McCrory when he's playing left wing back, obviously his body shape, he's very right-footed. So there's a couple of times where he's off balance and the ball goes across him onto his left foot and he's not quite there with his body shape. You can tell he's a right-footed player playing on the left. But when the ball's in the air, I watched him against Charlton when they swapped, when Sykes came on and he went from right wing back to left wing back. He doesn't attack the ball in the air from left wing back. So a right wing back there, if that ball was coming from right to left and he was a right wing back, I think he would have gone towards the ball and actually attacked the ball. Whereas when he's playing at left wing back, he tends to wait for the ball to come to him and he sets himself. For whatever reason, it's a quirk. He plays the ball differently in the air at right wing back than he does at left wing back. And he just stood there and waited for the ball. And Hunt is conceived what's happening. And he just gets across him in a way that you think, that's very un-McCrory-esque. Yeah. Vitek reads exactly what's going to happen. And he's
how often that happens a lot when McCrory loses challenges or he loses his battles, it affects the side hugely. Whether it's simple stuff of an individual battle or a cross in the box, it's like all roads lead through how McCrory plays. When he's dominating his individual battle, the side plays well. When he's struggling, the side struggle.
Vitek reads it expertly. He knows exactly where that guy's going to head it. So he's on the move in the way a top-class goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see if Man United keep struggling at goalkeeper, whether they look.
I think they're trying to sign somebody at the moment.
I don't see him as a top Prem. I think that's a step too far. You're exposing him to risk there. But they're two goalkeepers at the moment, pretty awful, aren't they? But a top goalkeeper, he's on the move. He's on his toes in a way in which sometimes Max could be. But Max is a decent Championship keeper as well. I'm not criticising him. But last night, Vitek read that situation. It was just really unfortunate because it's a fantastic save. The ball drops. Morris is already on the go. He's already anticipating. Okay, well, if he drops this, it might go there in the way a decent, experienced striker goes, in a way in which Armstrong would never do. Armstrong would still be sitting there on the 6-yard box with his arms crossed, waiting for something to happen. And then even when he shoots, it goes through Dickie's legs.
Yeah.
And then it just deflects away, and then Atkinson on line. So it needed about 4 or 5 things to go wrong for us there. It needed the cross, McCrory not winning it, the save to go down to Morris, the shot for Morris to go through Dickie's legs and deflect in such a way that Atkinson on the line couldn't
clear it.
So it was like a combination of about 3 or 4 things that needed to go wrong.
And then you're worried.
And they all went wrong.
Then you're worried about it being, oh my God, are they going to apply the pressure and get a winner?
I think they were just happy to get
They were happy at the first point on the board. I mean,
that was their first shot for like 80 minutes.
Yeah, if you want to end a bad run, and I take this back over the bloody 50 odd years I've been supporting, player coming back for injury, goal scorer come back. If you want to end a bad run, play Bristol City, because the number of times that we are the fall guys, I remember, who remembers the Birmingham City game, last game of the season, 2015-16? I think it was, when Cottrell and Harry Redknapp were on, and we had a full house in there, right? And, looking forward to next season. We didn't bloody show up, and we kept Birmingham up, but they got their just desserts about 10 years later. But watch them this season finish above us. If not,
they keep going in 90 and 98, and that is and even Wrexham scored late goals. I mean, we just don't do it. That was why there was a shock in the ground with Roberts at West Brom, wasn't it? When we actually scored a winner in the 93rd or whatever. It was shock in the ground when we actually scored.
We still had a chance, and 89 minutes. I can't remember who was fouled. Maybe it was fouled. Twine.
It was Twine.
When you see Twine, I mean, he has got a nationwide reputation. They put a graphic up, Sky. He's the top guy over the last 4 years for outside the box. And did you look at that? And it's almost like when you see a rugby, when he's going for the points in the end of the game, you look at the angle. I mean, bloody good effort. If that had gone in, that would have brought the house down, wouldn't it? And someone got to it, headbutted the post in the process, but cracking strike.
Oh, look, could he have done any more with that? Absolutely not. I looked to that free kick, and it was Twine that was fouled, and I thought he's 3-4 yards too wide. A debate in my head is he going to try and land it on the back post for someone? I had in my head kind of the goal that Luke McNally scored. I think actually it was against Derby back in January, where Twine floated it to the back post and McNally came flying in on it. But it was just superb technique. The keeper, I mean, fair play to him, because I think, as they said on Sky, he knows he's going to hit that post. And apparently he's had head injuries before as well, so he knew he was going to clatter it. I was dying for us just to get the ball straight back in there, straight afterwards. So I think when it went wide, I think it was Mehmeti retrieved the ball. I can't be certain on that. But I was thinking just turn, spin, fly it back in, because you've got a keeper on the floor and you just create a bit of chaos. But, I mean, to me, that free kick was probably as good, if not better, than the Sheffield United free kick, because of the angle where it was coming from and what he had to do to deliver it. It was an exceptional effort, and it would have deserved to win the game. And make no bones about it, we deserved to win the game. Yeah, and we only didn't win the game because we didn't make the right decision in certain places,
and we lost concentration in the very closing stages. Dave. Twine, that would have brought the house down if that one had gone in, wouldn't it?
When they were talking about, is he going to shoot? I was like, he's not going to shoot from there. Surely even he can't do it from there. And it's an exceptional effort, and well played to the keeper, Sometimes you have to say it's good football all round. It's a really, really good effort, and it's an exceptional save.
Yeah. I mean, Dave, looking at that free kick in the closing stage, when we were, again, looking maybe to get all 3 points, and we talked about it on the last pod, and we're mentioning it now. That free kick that we got in the last minute against Charlton, when Bird had it, I mean, you'd have thought you knew the referee, because that was in time added on. And the referee played quite a few. I think the referee played 2 extra minutes last night on 94. But that free kick by Bird last week was dreadful, wasn't it? Where he did an outswinger. Do you think we should let anything around the box go to Twine? Because where is he? He'd have had to have done a right foot curler, to get that in. But should we let Twine take all the free kicks that are anywhere within 25 yards of goal, whatever the angle?
Well, if you're going to shoot, for sure, but sometimes you need to mix it up a bit. I mean, if you're in certain positions, you kind of need to call their bluff, because in certain angles, if the keeper knows a shot is coming, he can position himself one way. If he's not sure if it's an outswinger or an in-swinger, you give Twine a little bit of room, because sometimes crosses are needed. And the one from the weekend, I understand the fact of that it wasn't the best delivery, but it doesn't necessarily mean that an outswinger is always wrong in that situation. Sometimes you want to put it on the keeper, but if you keep doing it over and over again, how often have you seen it in the past where you put it on the keeper, collects it, and you're like, keep it away from the keeper, make him do something. So it's not just a case of always, and you need to have a bit of variety.
Okay, fair enough. Neil?
What Twine did really well, where he was fouled, I'm thinking, God, that's too far out wide. Then the camera panned into the thing, and they're all sorting out the wall. And then the camera panned back to Twine, and he brought it about 4 yards over to the left.
Did he?
Yeah, and the ref hadn't picked up on it. And I'm like looking at it thinking, that's not where the foul is.
I'll have a look at that.
So, when you have a look at it, it was like where he was fouled to where he took the free kick was a good 4 or 5 yards to the left. Yeah. So he gave himself more of an opportunity with it. But what that keeper, who I don't really rate, he's Zetterstrom. But last year he was decent, and he was wearing that Peter Cech hat last year, the protector and all the rest of it. In the last few years, he's been wearing that protector on his head. Peter Cech, for the thing. But he hasn't worn it this season, and
I bet
he's not great, but what brave goalkeeping.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've got a head injury and it's necessitated you wearing that sort of headgear, there's a reason why you're wearing that headgear.
Yeah.
And not to be wearing that and then throw yourself at that, knowing, as Dave said, that you're going to whack your head. I mean, that was incredibly brave, Lane. So fair play.
And he saved them 3 defeats in a row. So
that was a fantastic free kick.
There it finished, 28,000, which is pretty much par for the course.
There wasn't 28, was it?
Wasn't there?
No, it was like car situation.
Empty seats.
When we say 24/7, then there's like 21 in there or something like that.
Yeah. On to Fulham. Bit worried that that's on a Wednesday because it's one less day to recover because Fulham are playing tomorrow. and he's got to make changes for Fulham. I mean, it would be nice to beat Fulham, but right here, right now, I want 3 points against Hull going into the international break. So we're on 8 points out of 12. Yeah. And that is 8 points out of 12 is a B plus for me on the first 4 games of the season. And I'll take a cup exit right now. But do you take that view, and what changes would you make on Wednesday night?
I totally take the view that if you gave me a choice between winning against Hull or winning against Fulham, I'd take the win against Hull every day of the week. And it is a B plus, you say, if you get there, because it's the old adage of win your home, draw your away, get 4 points from every 2 games. Okay, slightly different way around in this case with the Charlton Sheffield games. And it would represent an exceptionally solid start to the season. In terms of what the team looks like, I think we have to be mindful of the fact that we are still in transfer window territory, and there may be movement hopefully before then. But if all things are static, it would make sense to me to try and give Twine a rest, certainly, because again I thought he put a real shift in last night. McCrory, as we've already pointed out, the wing back roles are very, very demanding. I'd like to see McCrory take a little bit of break out of there. I'd like to see Max Bird have a start, potentially for Knight, see how Bird and Randall do together, or even Bird coming in for Twine. I'd like to see, again, what I thought Struber did very well against MK Dons is he had a plan, and he had Morrison and Yeboah involved. He's always going to give them 45 and said, we'll give them the 45, then we'll take them off. And I'd absolutely like to see Josh Stokes involved in this. So if you asked me to name a 1 to 11 right now, I find it quite difficult to do so because there's lots of different permutations I'd like to see. But taking the point about it being Wednesday and taking the point about it being the pressure that some of the roles have, I'd like to see it as an opportunity for us to rotate a few players out who may need a bit of a breather and give it a bit of experience to some of the younger players, be that Stokes, be that Murphy, be that Yeboah, be it Morrison.
Yeah, no, Lavelle. I mean, I excluded Yeboah from that list of players that could have been on the bench because, you know, if Cornick's got no future at the club, then he definitely has to be on the bench.
I don't get this. Well, I think with the Cornick thing, that's 3 managers now that haven't quite fancied him.
Yeah.
In it. So you have to acknowledge Pearson, Manning, and Struber. But to me, he's still a bit of an intelligent footballer, and he still runs the line. And he got 12 goals in the season with Luton before he came to us, and then you just think it just seems a bit of a waste at times. I went to Millwall last season when he came on and scored, and he made a huge difference there. I did Sam Bell actually with fresh legs on the left-hand side at left wing back when he came on. But he just made a difference with his intelligent running and everything on it. But there's something about Cornick that I think there's a general frustration that we haven't been able to move more. And I think that affects his selection.
Interesting what you say about Sam Bell coming on at Millwall, because I remember Sam Bell came on at Sunderland. And again, I think Sam offers something, but I think his time is done, to be honest. And you know, you've got to give Cornick a run. Dave, what changes? Sorry, Richard Hopkins says Atkinson won't start on.
That's fair. Yeah,
I'd agree with that because we want to keep him. I mean, he has been like a new signing. But Dave, what were you going to say, and what team changes for Wednesday?
First of all, I would rest Knight 100%. I would make Randall captain and say, look, this midfield is yours. You are the general. You make it work. And for me, from the Fulham game after that, the most crucial thing is that Struber gets a clear idea of who he can trust on the bench. Because right now, I'm looking at that bench and I'm like, Roberts, not really. Bell's a bit of a hope. Falley's a bit of a hope. Armstrong, I know he's going to come on, but is it enough? We've got these players, these younger guys like Morrison, like Stokes. I appreciate they are coming back. Stokes especially, give them the time they need. Understand if you trust them or not. And if you do trust them, they need game time in the league. If you don't trust them, we need to make moves. But as long as Knight is rested in McCrory, then the rest of the side is what it is. But I don't want to see Knight playing on McCrory.
Yeah, well, Dom said Knight won't start. And Knight, I mean, Struber loves Knight, end of. And Knight would say, I want to play, boss. I want to play. He's like that. But would you rest him?
I think I'm looking at the MK Dons starting lineup here.
Lumley.
Lumley might get a
Joanna?
game of goal, but Dickey, Viner, Tanner is a back three. I think that's the back three. I think. Sorry, Rich Hopkins, exactly right. I think he gives Atkinson a bit of. I give Knight a rest. Bring Bird in there. If you're going to say that he's going to do it, Randall's come off twice. Randall hasn't done 90 minutes of playing. The major things up front, Reece won't start. Reece won't play because he'll give him a rest with the line. So what's the gain by playing? If he's had a kick on his Achilles, you need a bit of time to settle down. So is he going to start Fally or Armstrong up top? I think he's going to start.
I'd be minded against Fulham. I'd be minded against Fulham to start Fally.
It's either Fally or Armstrong up top.
No, but Fally, there's a footballer in there somewhere.
Yeah, play Fally. Yeah.
I'd start him.
And then
Mr. P, if you're going to go Fally, you go with a front two, and you figure out if he can do it in a two, because he's not a leading the line striker. And if you want to get the best of him, you need to know it can.
Why not go right out there and do Fally and Cornick?
I'm going. So I remember going there in a cup game when Tammy Abraham scored a 93rd minute winner when we 1-2-1 and Lukic saved the penalty.
Yeah.
And I saw Gustav Engvels play for City. I mean, that is.
I remember going to Fulham.
He started.
I remember going to Fulham in the Tammy Abraham season, and we beat them 4-0.
Yeah.
If you look at the goals in that match, I was stood at that end where the away fans are, and Mel and I stood right behind the advertising audience, and you can see us giving it all that when we.
It's a bizarre.
Not the fourth one.
It's a bizarre thing at Fulham now. I haven't been since they built that new £1 billion stand or whatever like that. That's uber expensive and all the rest of it.
£12,000 for a hospitality season ticket there in that new stand.
But they have a neutral stand. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about. Have a neutral stand. They're obviously inviting the football tourists to come along and just enjoy the experience or whatever on the banks of the Thames, isn't it?
All right. Well, look, Fulham, great if we win, but I think we're all in agreement, we want to get a win against Hull to send us into the international break on a plus, because after Hull we got Sheffield Wednesday and Oxford as the next two games, right? And there's no easy games in this league, but we could be in a good position before. I think we got Ipswich at home in September, and there's another international break. But picking up on what a number of people say, you don't know how this season's going to pan out until we play 10 or 11 games. I think the second international break, which comes first week of October, I think that by the time we get there, that's where we'll have a rough idea. There's a few days, as you said, 12 days left in the transfer window. Just final nine. Is it final one from each of you? And do you think there will be any movement in or out before 2nd of September?
Yes, I think there will be movement both in and out. But my instinct is that we may need to trade, because we're talking about the bench and saying we've got 5 players there who not going to touch the pitch. All of these players, we've been trying to, things to be believed, we're trying to move on. Cornick, Roberts has been looking to go. Mayulu looks surplus still. Armstrong, there's rumours we're trying to move him on. All the players we'd like to get rid of, we don't seem to be able to get rid of. So if Struble wants to bring somebody in, and I think you've got to give him the ability to bring somebody in, unless we're prepared to fund it by opening the nest eggs, etc., then it may be that you need to trade. And the thing that I'm really mindful of is you've got 3 players out of contract that are in that first team at the moment. It may mean that you need to lose one of those in order to fund an improvement elsewhere.
And those 3 are Sykes, Mehmeti and Viner.
Yeah, there's obviously others out of contract.
Of course. But I mean, that's a very interesting point. They have value, and they're in the team at the moment.
Yeah,
Dave,
that value disappears.
Ins or outs? Do you think we're going to be frustrated? I mean, Tom seems to be keeping a pretty tight grip on the purse strings. I mean, that talk with Struber on Thursday, Struber said he'd like to bring in 1 or 2, and Tom was the other side of the room. Don't I, Tom? It was very much said like that, which brought a rueful smile from our new CEO. But people have got to want our players. You can't move a player on. But do you think we're going to be disappointed as fans because nobody will go and therefore nobody will come in?
That's the problem. I would hope. I mean, when you look at the side, you can see that it needs additions on the left, but somebody has to go out before someone comes in. Otherwise, not too far down the line, you're going to have issues of Pring, Morrison, and another left-sided player. What's happening with Sykes? So things need to be done for the plan going forward, but also for today, because it's clear the drop from Reece to the next striker is too much. But you can't have another striker unless you get some out. We need some help on the left, but again, we've got too many options in the wrong places. So I would hope there are moves, but we need to sell someone and someone has to take them. That's just how it is.
Neil?
I think once you get to the end of the transfer window, you have all these players on the transfer room, you list all of them on the transfer room, and you can see everyone's available. And you hope, if you're a Tom Rawcliffe, you're hoping that teams will come in, you're hoping that deals. You get to those last few days and you just think, we're going to have to compromise here, aren't we? So then you say Roberts, Bell, Cornick, whatever, you're thinking, right, okay, we'll subsidise them. We just need them out. We'll pay 50%,
you could subsidise 50% of their
wages, and then you make them available 50% of the
at the end of the year. And that's the other thing, as you said earlier, about stockpiling players. This is the final point from me. Stockpiling players, we can't do that. Yeah, a typical Bristol City, we've got quantity over quality and a dearth at left. And wouldn't it be great if we went out and we signed a left-sided player from a Premier League club in that role, very much like we've done with Vitek, right? On loan until January, where the wages, if we say half of the wages got rid of all four that we don't want, half of those wages there to fund a loan signing in that key position, that would make a difference. There must be a young left wing back in a Premier League side, right, that could come in and they have a recall clause in Jan, so that very much like with Max O'Leary, that when Pring's back, we haven't got the Pring Morrison problem.
But I do
just to counter that. Maybe we're just being slightly impatient, and Morrison will be the answer to that question. He just needs a bit of time to get up to speed. The question is, are we willing to wait? Because we speak about pathway. Maybe this is what it looks like, and maybe we need to be a bit more patient as fans. I agree with you. I'd love to see that player. But if you do that, Morrison then isn't getting looking. So which do we want to be is the question.
Yeah, my gut feeling is we're going to lose a couple of the players.
I think Sykes.
I think Sykes is going to have people are going to look at Sykes playing now and thinking he's out of contract. I mean, we've messed him around on that contract. He's on that contract from 3 years ago, and then we exercise his option year, keep him on that low-paying contract. Yeah. Every year he stays at us. The year that he's staying with us on our enforced option, he's losing money.
Yeah.
So if there's an offer for him that's suitable, I think we may lose Sykes, we may lose Mehmeti.
Yeah,
how he views himself. Mehmeti will be with his agent saying, right, top scorer, I want a 100% rise in my wages. And maybe we don't see Mehmeti the way that Mehmeti sees himself.
All right. We're done today. We'll be doing a match review of Fulham away on Thursday morning at 9. Dave's going off to complete his move to Dusseldorf. Yeah, so good luck with that, Dave. I know you're going to jump off this and get in your car straight after this. And Anne, great to have you on for the first time, and definitely subject to availability, we'd like to have you on. So good first team debut from
100%. And you were amazing. Honestly, you were fantastic.
All these youngsters, I'm starting to feel really old now. But
you carry the show, Mr. P. You carry her.
It's been a really good pod today, and you've all made great comments, good comments as ever from the people down the side. 300 people got up early listening as we record live at 8:30 till 9:40 on a Saturday morning. Absolutely fabulous. Whole home review, that will be on Sunday morning next week at 9 o'clock. But in the meantime, everybody, enjoy the bank holiday weekend. All the best. Goodbye.